Hi again, Mark here from TalkingBass.net. This week I'm going to be looking at a really popular rhythm that's used in loads of bass lines but that loads of people have trouble with. If you haven't been over to TalkingBass.net, then go check it out. There's over 100 free lessons over there on the lesson map covering every part of bass playing that you can possibly imagine. It's all organised into topics to make things easier for you to navigate, and if you subscribe for free, you'll gain access to loads of exclusive content. There's courses, a forum, ebooks including the scale reference guide that I often mention, and there's also the practice room that provides you with tons of resources for developing your practice. So go check it out. Now let's have a look at that rhythm. So first of all, I'm just going to demonstrate it so that you know what it sounds like. And I'm going to do this to a metronome so that you can hear where the beat is in relation to it. And I'm going to play it on one note to begin with. So here's the metronome at 90 beats per minute. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it's those three hits there. We've got that. Okay, just those three hits. So again, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's the rhythm. Now you'll often hear it moving around with different notes in there through a bass line. So that might sound like this. Okay. So if we look at this rhythm in standard notation, it looks like this. We've got a dotted eighth note, 16th note rhythm tied to two eighth notes, or also as eighth note, rest, eighth note. Now, don't worry if you don't have any experience with standard notation. I'm going to be taking you through all that step by step, but for those of you that do understand the notation, you're going to have an immediate advantage with this, and you'll probably already be able to work out, for yourself pretty quickly what's going on. Now, because of the syncopation, it's a really cool rhythm and it's used in loads of funk, disco, Latin style bass lines, but it's also used in more straight tunes as well. But overall, it is a really popular rhythm, but it's not the easiest rhythm in the world to play, or at least to get under your fingers, especially if you're trying to read it. It can look a little confusing. So a lot of people do have problems just getting used to the syncopation, but once you've got it, you'll start seeing it all over the place. Now, because this is one of those rhythms that you hear all the time, a lot of you will probably be able to just pick this up by ear straight away. But I have had many students that do have problems with repeating it like that, me playing it and then them playing it back. And it has to do with that syncopated 16th note that's in there. So I'll often hear it quantized to the nearest eighth note or quarter note. So instead of this, we can sometimes get this. Or you get all kinds of different rhythms coming back at you. But, even if you can get it, even if you do get it right, and you think, oh yeah, I know that rhythm, it is worth still, going through some of the counting exercises I'm going to show you with this, because it always helps to work on your rhythmic accuracy, and that's what we're going to be working on. So to do this, we're going to have to make sure that we're okay with our counting of subdivisions. So I'll quickly go over that. So I'm going to use a metronome, and I'm just going to set it to a fairly slow tempo of 60 beats per minute, and we'll just try counting along with it to begin with, because if you can't count along to it and keep the foot tapping, then you're going to have crazy problems with actually playing over it. So here's the metronome, and first of all we'll just count quarter notes. Now if you don't know what quarter notes are, it's just that regular pulse that you're hearing right there. So that's a bar of 4/4. We've got 4 beats in the bar, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. They're quarter notes. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And keep the foot tapping on each beat. 3, 4. And I'm clicking the fingers because you can't see my foot. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And make sure every single count there is landing bang on with each of those clicks. So next, let's try eighth notes. Now eighth notes are double the speed of quarter notes, so we are splitting the beat up into two parts. So we count this as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So we're putting an and between each one. We don't want 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. You know, it's got to be a consistent pulse. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay? So again, let's try with the metronome. 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and keep the foot tapping on each beat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay? So you want to be able to count that and make sure that you can keep the foot on each beat and you can count. Okay? And make sure that each one is really accurately there on, you know, on the pulses that you're hearing or the clicks that you're hearing. So finally, let's move on to 16th notes. Now, 16th notes are going to be counted double the speed of 8th notes because we've gone up quarter, 8th, 16th. 16th notes are where we subdivide the beat into groups of 4. Okay, so we count this as 1E and A, 2E and A, 3E and A, 4E and A. So we've got the beat, then we've got E and A. So 1E and A. Okay, so with the pulse, it would be 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and up to tempo 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and. So let's try with the metronome. 3, 4. 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and. Okay, so that's how we count those 16th notes. Now, what you can also do is try going between the subdivisions. So first of all, we'll try just going from the 8th notes to the 16th notes, which would sound like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and. He says running out of breath. Again. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and see how keeping the foot tapping there on each beat. Next, we could just try from quarter notes to 16th as well, just so that we can hear how the speed of our counting changes. 3, 4. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and. Okay, so you should be able to count each of those subdivisions and work between them. If you can do that, then you can move on to trying this riff. So now let's have a look at that rhythm. And to do this, I'm going to split it into 2 parts because it spans 2 beats. So first of all, we'll just look at the first beat. And this is the dotted 8th, 16th note rhythm. So don't worry about all that if you don't know all about these rhythms, because I'm going to show you exactly where to put the notes. So we're going to play a C, 3rd fret of the A string there, and just play this rhythm on 1 note. So we want to hit on 1, E and A. Okay, so we've got 1 E and A. So it's on the 1 and the A. So it's on the 1st and the 4th of those subdivisions. So I'll play very, very slowly. 1 E and A. Okay, 1 E and A. 1 E and A. 1 E and A. Okay, so that's where we're going to be putting the hits. Now, that might seem really, really simple because you're simply counting something and then putting notes on them, you know. But the problem comes when all the other beats are in there, you know, that come along and the foot, and you start to get dragged into where that syncopated note is, as you'll hear when you try it. So what we'll try is, for the whole bar, we'll count 1 E and a 2 E and a 3, 4. I'm not going to put the E unders on the 3 and the 4 because, you know, you'll run out of breath eventually. So very slowly, that bar is going to sound like this. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3, 4. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3, 4. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3, 4. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3, 4. Okay, so that's the rhythm. So let's start really slow. so that you can keep the count and you know where you are. Because as you speed up, you need to be on autopilot a little bit. Because as you speed up, it's like 1E and 2E and 3, 1E and 2E, you've got to kind of know the rhythm already, to play it at that speed. So we'll just try really, really slowly. So 1E and 2E and 3, 4. 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 Now, you should be keeping the foot counting on each beat. And what will often happen is that when you play 1E and you end up putting the foot on the with the playing, because you need independence between the feet and the playing. It is very much an independence exercise. It just seems like the easiest thing in the world to just keep the foot consistently doing this. But when you start playing these kind of syncopated rhythms, your foot does get kind of dragged along with the syncopation, and it's like 1E and 2E and 3, 4. 1E and 2E and 3, and this is what the foot should be doing. 1E and 1E and 2E and 3, 4. 1E and 2E and 3, 4. So that's what the foot should be. 1E and 2E and 3, 4. 1E and 2E and 3, 4. So the note comes before the foot. So 1E and 2. Okay. 1E and 1E and that's where the problem lies, because a lot of you will probably do this. 1E and 2E and etc. So let's try it again, slow, but keep that foot on the beat. Okay, so 1E and 2E and 3, 4. 1E and 2E and 3, 4. 1E and 2E and 3, 4. And you just want to keep trying that over and over again until you can do it, okay? And like I said, because the foot comes after, you have to kind of think to yourself, 1E and foot. Bass, bass, foot. Bass, bass, foot. Rather than, just letting your foot try and do it. Now, this is all based on you doing it wrong, obviously. If you can do this naturally and you have no problems with the independence between your feet and your playing, and you can just play the rhythm fine, don't worry. This isn't the exercise for you. You're doing well. But for people out there that do have problems with this rhythm, this will be where the problems lie, getting this syncopation working. So you're the people that really need to work on it. So just persevere and just keep trying it. And it does take a while to get this kind of thing. I've had loads of students that have problems with this rhythm, and it has taken a while for them to really get used to it. But you will get there in the end. Now let's try playing that rhythm to the metronome. So there's going to be some added pressure here. So the metronome counts are going to be on your foot, okay? Or at least your foot should be on the metronome counts. So here's the metronome, 60 beats per minute. So we've got 1E and 2E and 3, 4. That's the count that we're using. 3, 4. 1E and 2E and 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 3, 4. Okay, so that's the rhythm, and each one of your foot taps should be on those clicks. Okay, and if I just try it one more time, you can hear the click coming after the bass note. 2, 3, 4. 1E and you can hear it. So when you play that second note, listen for the click just after. 3, 4. Okay, so that's what you want to be listening out for. Now, for some of you out there, you might have problems actually counting and doing all this, and it just might not work for you, whereas you might be able to feel it a little bit easier just by hearing it, hearing where the notes are in relation to that metronome. Like I said, for accuracy, you can't be subdividing and actually placing them there like we have done. But, if you just want to try feeling it, just have a listen to how I play along with this metronome, okay? So it's going to be exactly the same thing that we've just played, but I'm not going to do any counting, and just listen to where those metronomes fall. So it's, just as I was talking about where, the click occurs after the second hit, just, get a feel for the rhythm itself. So 3, 4. Okay, so that's what you want to be listening out for. Now, one thing that you can do is hear that second beat as if you were playing it. Now, that would sound like this. So there I'm actually playing, 1 E and A, 2. I'm hitting the 2 as well. 2, 3, 4. Now, to make that seem a little more obvious, I'm going to play that on beats 1 and 3. So I'm just going to repeat it twice in the bar. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So then all you have to do is take out, that third hit that we've got there. Back to the 3 hits, 2, 3, 4. So hear that rhythm and just, try and not play in the third of the hits. 2, 3, 4. Back to it. Without. Okay, so that's another way of counting this, rather than sitting there and going 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. There I wasn't doing any counting, and you're just going for the feel of it, how it sounds in relation to the foot or the click, or the general feel of the tune. So now let's try speeding things up a little, and I'm going to move the metronome up to 70 beats per minute, because we really need to know how this rhythm feels at a more normal kind of tempo, because you're generally going to hear it at more 90, 100, 120 beats per minute, those kind of tempos. So let's go up to 70 beats per minute. So here's the metronome, and again I'm just going to play it on the 1, okay, and the C, 3rd fret of the A string. 3, 4. Okay, now let's try 80 beats per minute. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and finally let's try 90 beats per minute. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now let's try working through a chord progression with that rhythm, okay? And we're going to use a backing track for this. So we're going to work through the progression C7, F7, C7, G7. So this is a funky kind of vibe here, and so we'll just work through with the backing track, but we're going to play C, 3rd fret of the A string, down to F, 1st fret of the E string, back to C, third fret of the A string, and then G, third fret of the E string, okay? So here with the backing track is how that'll sound. Now let's try making use of that little syncopated 16th note in there and really draw attention to it by playing a higher octave, okay, for each of the notes. So for the C, we're going to have the C and then the octave there at the 5th fret of the G string. So the rhythm would be, okay, and we just repeat that same pattern throughout the chord progression. So C, F, C, and then to G. Okay, and you can hear how it makes it a little bit more funky, and we're really drawing attention to that syncopated note, which gives us more of a syncopated feel. So here we are with the backing track. So that's the first beat taken care of, so now we can move into the second beat. So the third hit of this rhythm is going to be on the and of 2. So in terms of counting those two beats, we have 1 E and A, 2 E and A, okay? 1 E and A, 2 E and A, okay? So I'll just play it there on the C. So 1 E and A, 2 E and A. 1 E and A, 2 E and A, okay? So a little bit quicker. 1 E and A, 2 E and A. 1 E and A, 2 E and A. Okay, and now I'll just add the other beats. 1 E and A, 2 E and A. 4. 1 E and A, 2 E and A. 3, 4. 1 E and A, 2 E and A. 3, 4. 1 E and A, 2 E and A. 3, 4. So now let's try playing with the metronome again, and as I did before, I've gone back down to 60 beats per minute. So here's the metronome. 1 E and A, 2 E and A, 3, 4. 1 E and A, 2 E and A, 3, 4. 1 E and A, 2 E and A. 1 E and A, 2 E and A. 1 E and A, 2 E and A. Okay? So as I mentioned before, it can actually be easier if you try and feel this rather than count it. Counting is good for the accuracy, obviously, but once you've got the counting under your, or got the rhythm under your fingers, you can then try to just, feel it. So I'm going to play it again without any counting, and just have a listen to it. Just try and get a feel for it, and listen for where the click is. Try and feel that second beat. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now here's the rhythm at 70 beats per minute. 1, 2, 3, 4. Obviously you want to practice that round and round and round. Now 80 beats per minute. 3, 4. And now 90 beats per minute. And as you get into these quicker tempos, it'll start to sound like a more familiar rhythm, and it might actually seem a lot easier because you've got less gaps between each of the hits. It can roll off the fingers a little bit easier. Okay, so 90 beats per minute. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now let's try playing that rhythm through the chord progression with the backing track. Okay, so to begin with, we'll just try with the root notes. C, F, C, G. Okay? 2, 3, 4. Now we'll try two variations on that pattern. So we'll first of all just try, as we did before, putting in the octave on that little 16th note hiccup. So that gives us this rhythm. Okay, and the second variation is going to be root fifth octave, and that sounds like this. So there we have C, G, C. Okay, and then obviously for the F we have F, C, F, and then G, D, G. Okay, so I'm going to try both of those different variations, and like I said, you can download the backing track and play with this to your heart's content. So first of all, I'll try it with a little octave in there, and then I'll try with the root fifth octave. 2, 3, 4. Okay. Octave. Once you've nailed that rhythm, you can just start to add your own notes around it. So here is an example. I'm just going to play over that backing track and I'm just going to improvise things around it, so around that core rhythm, okay? Now, once you get used to that more funky version with the short 16th note in there, we can try relaxing the feel a little and tying the note over. So for this, we get this kind of rhythm. So, okay, you can hear I'm holding each of those notes for the full duration. It's the same hits as it was in the first rhythm, it's just that we're holding them on. So here's the first rhythm, and here's the second one. Okay, so exactly the same hits. 1E and da, 2E and da, but held. Now, if we were going to try that over the backing track, we'd have a little bit of a different feel. So here it is. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you can hear how it's got less of that funky little hiccup in there. And like that, it sounds a little bit bland, when we just play it on one note like that. But if I was to play the root fifth octave pattern, so then it starts to sound a little bit more interesting. So here it is again with the track. can hear there that, you know, it has a little bit of a different feel. It's a little bit more relaxed. And when it's played like that, it's a lot more in the Latin kind of feel. You know, there's a lot of Afro-Cuban grooves that use that kind of rhythm and variations on that. And when you play it like that, you know, you get more of that Latin feel. Okay, so when we play it, it's got more of that funk groove, whereas, you know, we're getting more into the kind of Latin side of things. And you can hear there that as I play that, when we hold it, it kind of accentuates the fact that we're holding over the beat, you know. So the syncopated side of it is actually more intense. When we play it as, you know, the funk version, we're not holding over the beat. It's still syncopated, but not to the same extent. We're not holding over the beat, okay? So we're just kind of preempting it. It's a anticipation in that sense. So try to experiment with that rhythm and listen out for it in all your favourite songs. You know, you will hear it around. If this video's helped, then be sure to click on the like button and please subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Also, remember to check out TalkingBass.net where you can find all that exclusive bass material, okay? See you later.